Hey everybody, welcome to this fun little workshop. I'm Rosemary. I'm super excited to be with you this evening. I'm excited to get into some music theory and production, but first just a little bit about me. Again, I'm Rosemary Minkler, and I'm a keyboardist, singer, producer, songwriter. I'm from Connecticut and I kind of grew up playing music, got really interested in jazz in high school and kind of decided to take that path with me to college. I went to Western Connecticut State University in Danbury, Connecticut, where I studied audio and music production. So I learned a little bit more about recording and mixing and mastering in that program, as well as being able to play jazz and learn more about composing and performing. And once I graduated, I moved to Brooklyn, New York, where I decided to work as an audio engineer. So I worked at BuzzFeed for a little while, working on a TV show that they did there. And at night, I would, play shows, which unfortunately we haven't been able to have any live shows for almost a year now, which is pretty crazy. But learn to adapt, and I'm super excited to be doing this workshop here to just kind of get more involved in electronic music collective and to kind of keep up my chops in producing and playing. So again, I'm really excited to be with Electronic Music Collective. I think I started with them in like 2019. So teaching Ableton, some more music theory kind of stuff. I did a YouTube series called Recording with Rosemary, where I kind of took new music releases and picked apart the chords. So you can go find some of those videos after this. But Electronic Music Collective offers a bunch of different courses, both in Manhattan and online. Of course, due to COVID, most things are online right now. But if you want some more information about Electronic Music Collective, feel free to go to their website and stay tuned for stay tuned for more events. Obviously, I'm getting already really excited. But yeah, Electronic Music Collective, a really great way to learn some more about music and production and DJing. So let's get on with the show, the workshop. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat and I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. But I figured I would start the workshop off just by kind of showing my process of how I go about making beats in Ableton. When I was in college, I studied mostly Pro Tools and a little bit of Logic, but I feel like Ableton to me is the DAW that is a little bit more more it's a little bit more easier to be creative in Ableton. So let's see. I have all of my drum samples over here, and one of my go-tos is this Ninth Wonder drum kit. Has a lot of great samples. And there's a couple of different ways that I usually go about making beats. Either I'll drop samples in, or I'll use drum loops that some of my friends have sent me, or I'll use this program called XO from XLN Audio. I can share a little bit more about that with you if you guys are interested. But right now, I'm feeling this Ninth Wonder drum kit right now. This is usually, again, my go-to. So usually I like to start with the kick, kind of come up with a cool kick pattern. So usually I just try to go through some of my samples and see which one I'm kind of vibing with at the moment. Oh, this is the not so glamorous part about beat making, but this is also the kind of the fun part. You get to like customize what you're feeling in the moment. That one's kind of nice. I think I'm gonna drag this on, and we'll zoom in here. Try to come up with a cool kick pattern. So usually, the kick is on maybe the 1 and the 3, but I like to kind of mix it up. So I think I might try to do something like don't. Let's see. Kind of trying to hear the snare in your head. And right now my tempo is set to 120. I think I'm going to bring it down maybe to 92. Let's see. It's kind of a little bit slower than I thought, so bring it back up. Okay. So that's a little skeleton we've got so far with a kick. I'm not going to go too crazy with trying to do like 20 measures of this because I know it's going to change over time. So this is just kind of like a little foundation for what we might want to use. So next I usually try to do some snare. And I've been really digging this pack from my friend Dotan, who's a really great guitarist and producer. And he's got some really great guitar samples in here as well as drums. So let's check out some of his snares. That might be cool. Or that. Let's try this. Drag that onto a MIDI track. Rookie mistake. All right, so this is gonna go on our 2 and 4. I've been listening to a lot of Biggie lately, so just kind of getting inspired by that like 90s New York hip hop sound. Okay, so with the snare in there, the kick sounds a little off of what I wanted to do. So I'm gonna move this over. All right, still a little different than what I'm hearing in my head. So I turn the tempo down a little. Yeah, that's more like it. So now I'm just going to select this measure and hit Command D to copy it over, duplicate rather. Wow, I didn't mean for that to be there, but that was kind of cool. Sometimes these weird coincidences happen, mistakes, if you will, but sometimes the mistakes are the best part. I think I'll take it out. It's a little too weird, but it was cool for a second. Okay. So again, I don't want to go too crazy with trying to do like 20 measures of this, so I'm just going to duplicate what I have here, and let's do 8 measures or so. That should be a good little loop to kind of get us going. And usually when I'm coming up with ideas, usually the drums are actually what come first to me. And then usually I kind of use that as a basis for what kind of chords I might want to use. But sometimes, you know, it's the other way. Usually I'll be sitting at the piano practicing something and just come up with a cool chord progression. I'm like, oh, I could really hear some drums behind this. So really depends, but most of the time it's drums before chords. And, you know, everyone's got their own flow, their own way of going about making beats, but that's usually been the case for me. All right, so let's take a listen to this little loop and see what other parts of the drum kit we might want to add. If I'm feeling any chords at the moment, maybe we'll try to add something. I feel like there needs to be some weird percussion thing. So I'm gonna go to this pack from my friend Aoife, who's a really great producer out in LA, and he did this pack I think at the beginning of the pandemic called Around the House, and it's literally just sounds that he sampled from things around the house. So there's some really cool sounds in here. Let's go to the percussion. You know, just like random stuff like fridge door hit, garbage can. A lot of things that are just normal around the house but can be super inspiring. Mason jar. That's interesting. Ooh. Tongs. Okay, maybe one of these will work. Let's take another listen again. cool. This could be a cool substitute for a hi-hat maybe? Let's try it out. Honestly, my MO for beat making is just kind of going with whatever might sound cool and trying it out. And if it doesn't work, then it's no harm, no foul. So, let's see. Let's see. Not sure if this will. Yeah, a little too intense, but maybe if we do every other, this could be cool. Yeah, maybe like not quite. Okay, that could be a cool little rhythm there. This could kind of act as like a little melody in its own way, just um, kind of its own rhythmic element that is kind of random, but also um, a little bit more thought out. Let's see. Okay. All right. I'm sort of liking how this is going so far, so maybe I will duplicate this. Actually, I gotta add a little bit more. Fill out this measure. All right. And if we end up not liking it later on, we can always get rid of it. So keep it in there for now. I did kind of like this wine glass clink. This could maybe be just sort of randomly placed. Let me zoom out a little bit more. Maybe at the end of fourth measure or something. Cool. So I'm not entirely set on these tong sound, so I might try to find a hi-hat loop and see what we might be able to find. Let's see. That could be cool. So I'll keep this tong sound in there, but I'm going to turn this track off. Throw some reverb on those tongs. Okay, let's try that before we do anything else. So I'm just going to send this to my A reverb track, see if I like it, and then maybe I can tweak the reverb a little. Cool. Maybe I'll add some EQ. Okay. EQ on the wrong track. All right. Yeah, I think I definitely like that a little bit more than just plain and simple. Sometimes some EQ and reverb can go a really long way. I'm just going to add some, or rather add a limiter to this master so we don't get too carried away here. But yeah, I think that reverb and the EQ definitely helped shape this sound a little bit more. But let's see, where I was looking at some hi-hats, and I think it was this one. We'll try that, and we can come back to this tongs sound if we need. So now Ableton is going to warp this sample. Let's see if it sounds. Okay, I think I like that because it has like this vinyl-y sound. But actually, before I do that, I might go on here and we can stretch out our sample by twice the length, or we can make it shorter. So maybe I'll make it shorter by 2 times, just so I have that eighth note hi-hat pattern. That's super cool. So I think I might stick with that for now. Might come back to the tongs. We have it there if we need it. And I think I'm actually going to do some EQ on this EQ on this snare. It's a little bright. I might also turn the volume down and see. Cool. And there is a weird, like, it sounds kind of like a bird humming in this hi-hat loop. So it's kind of cool, but it's also kind of distracting. So I don't know if I'll be able to take that out somehow with EQ, maybe? Let me know if you guys think that like little humming noise in the hi-hats is distracting or not, because I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of part of the vibe, but it, you know, once we add the chords, it might get a little too much. So let me know if you think that's a little distracting. Let me know if you think the tongs sound is actually more fitting than this hi-hat. Definitely it's kind of cool to have some outside opinion on this sort of stuff, rather than just kind of getting in your own head and you know, thinking a little bit too much about these things sometimes. But okay, anyways, so we have our basic stuff. I think I might do a little bit of panning here, and I think I might actually send this snare to the reverb. It needs a little bit of reverb. Yeah, I really like this hi-hat, but I think that noise is going to get a little too distracting for me. So we'll keep it in there for now. Let's see. Let's see. Billboard Shaw, kind of like that. Should keep it in and let play sometimes. Okay, so I guess that you're talking about the hi-hats. So we'll come back to that for sure. But let's get into some chords. So obviously, as a pianist, a keyboardist, I'm definitely a chord nerd, and especially as someone who's played jazz a lot. I like to get into more seventh chords kind of stuff, but I figured for this, maybe we could talk a little bit more with starting with triads and how we can use different inversions to kind of expand our harmonic experience with just triads. And of course, we'll get into some seventh chords, but I've got addictive keys here on a MIDI track by XLN Audio. Really great plugin, really amazing sounding pianos and electric pianos, modern upright. So let's see. I'll stick with this sound just to kind of try out some chords, see what might work with this sort of vibe. So I'm just gonna loop it. And one of the things usually when I'm kind of sitting down and trying to come up with a chord progression is kind of what color this vibe is. And to me, this sounds kind of more, it kind of reminds me of like maybe a summer day in Brooklyn when it's so hot and the the fire hydrants are opening up and all that. So maybe something a little bit more lighter, kind of playing at the idea of major versus minor. Major kind of more happy, upbeat sort of sound, minor more melancholy or maybe pensive kind of thinking. Okay, let's see what you guys say. Play both again, please. Yeah, the hi-hats. Okay. So yeah, we're trying to figure out if this hi-hat thing is more fitting or if this tong sound is more fitting. So this is what the hi-hats sound like, and there's a little like kind of humming. It sounds kind of like a bird humming, which is a little distracting to me, but overall I really like the hi-hat sound. So this is with the hi-hats. And this is with the tongs, which I can also change up the pattern and try to do a few other things. Let's try. I know you guys are giving me some suggestions, which is awesome. So let's see. You could do split both, half tongue and half the second hats you picked. So let's try it both at the same time, and maybe we can do some messing around with panning and volume adjustment that might make it sound musical. That's really cool. Yeah, I kind of like having them both in there. Thank you guys for that suggestion. It kind of the hi-hats is cool for the vinyl crackling sound and obviously the hi-hats, but the tongue kind of gives it a little bit more movement, a little bit more rhythm, a little bit more interesting, I guess, especially since it's not quite randomized, but not quite just your straight eighth notes. So I like that. Let's try that out. Again, if you have any other suggestions for hi-hats for any of these drum sounds. Another thing I might do is group these. So select all of the tracks and then Command G and put them into a drum group, which is nice because then you can just later down the line you can solo only the drums just to kind of find a better balance between the drum parts, and then you can also send the entire drum group to different audio effect channels. So I like using this grouping ability in Ableton. So keep sending your questions in. I think tongs could be used as a break alternative. I think panning the hi-hats over a couple measures would sound cool. Another thing that I kind of like to do with hi-hats is also great suggestions, by the way. Another thing I like to do with the hi-hats is sometimes use Sound Toys, what is it called? Pan Man. So this is like an oscillating panner, so we can set our width, so how wide we want this to be panning, and we can set the rate, so how quickly we want it to be going back and forth, left and right, and then smoothing, and then also whether it's going from right to left, left to right, or just back and forth, kind of like this. So sometimes I like to do this just to create some movement and kind of maybe confuse the listener, maybe just keep them more interested. So let's check this out. I think this actually might sound better on the tongs. I originally put it on the hi-hats, but I think it would be better with this tong idea just because it's a little bit more rhythmic and it's kind of sporadic. So if we just solo it, kind of creates this cool. I think it just brings a little bit more interesting flavor to the sound. Creates more movement because ultimately, when we were listening, it's more than just a 2D experience. We're kind of trying to fill up this whole space, sonic space, and I think that using this panning idea is kind of a cool trick to just keep the listener more interested, perhaps. So I like your suggestion. Thank you guys for the suggestion of using both the tongs and the hi-hats. I'm feeling pretty happy about this right now. Yes. Okay. So keep sending your questions or suggestions, but yeah, now I think I'm gonna dive into some chords for a little bit. So I'm just gonna loop this a little bit and try to come up with a few chord ideas that I think might fit the vibe, so to say. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I kind of like that idea already. It's the first one off the bat, but I think it kind of fits pretty well. So just to explain kind of what I was doing, I started off with this A half diminished. So if we're thinking about our diminished triad with a minor seventh, kind of a nice sound. It feels like it needs to move somewhere. And you can see the notes on the bottom of the screen, hopefully. So starting with this A half diminished, move into this A flat major 7. And one thing I like to think of when I'm coming up with chords is to think about the bass note as well as the top note, because ultimately those are going to be kind of the determining factors for what people's ears gravitate towards melodically. So even if the bass line is the bass line, people are still going to be paying attention to that in its own way. And especially since I'm not a bass player, I usually do synth bass. I kind of like to have fun with making little melodies in my synth bass. So thinking about the bass line, the top note in my chords, how I can voice lead, so moving between chords without moving as many notes as possible. So kind of trying to keep the same notes within different chords. So already between this A half diminished and the A flat major 7, the only note that I'm moving is this bottom note. And already right there, we're kind of going from our A half diminished chord, which kind of has a lot of tension built into it. Again, it feels like it needs to go somewhere. And we're already releasing that tension by going to the A flat major 7. So again, thinking of melodies in the bass and the top note of our chords, as well as trying to find this play of tension and release, which is ultimately what makes music so powerful, in my opinion. So I think this is a good start, our A half diminished to A flat major 7. And then kind of playing on that same idea of moving the bass note down chromatically, which means moving it down by a half step. So a half step is from one note to any note directly next to it. And if I'm talking about anything that's a little over your head, or if you there's no stupid questions, let me just say that I am happy to explain anything and everything about these chords that I'm playing. So again, feel free to leave your questions in the chat. But yeah, this idea of moving the bass note down chromatically. So from our A flat major 7, I might go to this G minor. Let's see. Questions? Rose. Okay. All right. So A half diminished 7, A flat major 7, G minor. And this is a version of one of my favorite chords. I use it in a lot of different situations, and this is the sus 7 chord. So Right here we have our C7 sus chord. And basically sus just stands for suspended, not suspicious. But I guess it could be suspicious. So this is kind of playing on the idea that instead of having our major third here, which kind of tells us whether the chord is major or minor, instead of having our third in there, we're having our fourth. So it creates this more open sound. It sounds not quite totally resolved. It sounds like it wants to resolve, which makes it a really great chord for kind of either building more tension or starting the next section of our song. So I think this could be a good chord to end our little loop on. And we can even resolve it there to our C7 chord. And in order to voice these chords on the piano, it might be a little overwhelming to have all these notes happening at the same time. But usually what I do is I'll at least play the root in my left hand, sometimes the root in the seventh. So in this case, it might be A and G, A flat and G, G and F, and then C and B flat. And already right there, I kind of have a little melody going with this top note in the chords. How do you get the keyboard to show on the screen? So on the bottom of the screen here, the reason why you can see what I'm playing is I have this program called MuseScore open. I can show it to you guys if you'd like. But basically, it's just a music notation software, and there's a keyboard function, so you can see the keyboard on the bottom. And thanks to MIDI, you can see what notes I'm playing there. Okay, so I think we have a little idea for our chord progression. I'm going to record this now with addictive keys. So let's try it out. Okay. Just wanted to make sure I knew I had at least one measure of counting. Awesome. Okay. This always gets me when doing the looping. Kind of an annoying thing to have to do, but all right, let's check this out, see how it sounds. Okay, so one thing I noticed in my little performance here is one of the A half diminished chords didn't have a E flat in it. So I'm just going to add that real quick. The beauty of MIDI. Okay, so D sharp. And we'll turn the velocity down because we don't want it to be abnormally loud. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, so I'm just gonna add a little compression to this piano, just to let it stand out a little bit. Okay, Okay, so let me know what you guys think of that chord progression. I think it fits really well with the style. Um, and yeah, no complaints about it. One other thing I might do is go into my plugins, and you're going to see a lot of these excellent audio plugins happening tonight. Huge fan of their stuff. Last measure was just the same, just less sustain. Last measure, yes. So let's listen back to that. Yeah, so I guess I must have just lifted my hands off the keyboard there a little bit earlier. But I can even go into the MIDI here and lengthen these notes if I want. Usually, sometimes I'll record in MIDI. Usually I just like to use the input of my Nord here. But having MIDI is really nice, obviously, for these situations. So let's see if that sounds a little bit. Yeah, I think that's really good. It rings out a little bit longer. So excellent audio. I was using Addictive Keys for that piano sound, and I think I'm gonna use RC20 on it. This is a really cool plugin that allows you to have this kind of vinyl VHS sort of sound. So let's see how this piano sounds. So we can make it sound nice and warbly. Awesome. Okay. So next, now that I have some drums, I was gonna add this. So this is DS10 Drum Shaper. It's a cool little plugin. Just kind of gives the drums a little kick, no pun intended. And since this is on the drum group, I'm gonna select this bus option, but I can also put it on the kick and snare tracks individually. So this kind of just boosts the presence a little bit, makes it a little bit more punchy. We have a couple of different algorithms that we can choose from if we want it to be more attack based, and turn down the sustain if we want it to be a little bit more punchy. I like this classic sound, so I think I'm going to use that. I'm going to turn the drums down just a little bit. And so next, I'm going to add some synth bass. So I think I'm actually going to use my Nord for this. And usually I'll either use my Nord or I have the Arturia V collection. So sometimes I'll use the Prophet for that. Let's see. And I'm going to add some compression to this because this Nord is a bit quiet. Okay, can you compare DS10 to drum bus? So drum bus, as in the Ableton. Let's see. Aha. So I actually haven't used this this Ableton audio effect, but I'm imagining it's probably somewhat similar to the DS10. Let's put it on this track and see what happens. So it seems kind of like, oh, didn't mean to put it there. It's probably doing a lot of the same things that the DS10 does, which is mostly just like compressing and kind of using different envelopes to create more attack or sustain. So it kind of looks like what it's doing there. So we have, again, our attack, sustain, presence. I kind of like to think of that as compression. So sort of the same stuff here. This has crunch, which sounds kind of cool. Let's see what this might sound like. Yeah, that's really cool. I don't think I've ever used that, so I'm definitely going to look more into this drum bus category over here. Seems, again, pretty similar to this DS10 thing. So if you don't have the DS10 from Excellent Audio, I think this drum bus Ableton preset is another good option. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. I feel like there's always stuff I'm learning about Ableton. I feel like most of the time, most people are just using like 20% of Ableton's actual capabilities, which is pretty awesome to think like there's more to explore to this awesome DAW. So, okay, going to record some synth bass. And again, I like to try to come up with some different melodies for my synth bass, but usually just focusing on the root and maybe arpeggiating the chord. So either going from the root to the fifth all the way up to the next root an octave up, or just sticking to the root and kind of being more rhythmic with it. So I might try a couple of different things and loop this for a little while. Okay, so that's kind of just experimenting with a few different ideas, going between having longer notes and kind of shorter notes with a little bit more rhythm to it. But I really like what I was doing kind of towards the end of this, so let's listen back. Cool, so I think I might actually just take this little idea and duplicate it. So, you don't have to get too crazy with trying to make every single measure totally unique, especially kind of just when fleshing ideas out like this. By the way, yes, someone was asking about this notation software, Muse Score. I'm pretty sure it's free. I don't remember having to pay anything for it. So definitely go check it out. It's been really useful for stuff like this as well, just to make sure you guys are getting as much of this info as possible. So let's take a listen now with our bass. Awesome! I'm really happy with this. I feel like I might actually use this for something. So we'll see about that. Let me know if you have any questions about any of the chords that I was doing with this, any of the drum stuff. I'm gonna save this actually right now. I like to name my stuff with dates. Gotta keep it interesting. But I figured I would actually share some other projects that I've worked on to kind of go over more of my production ideas and chord ideas. So this one right here I thought would be, sorry. This one right here I thought would be cool to share. This one, I actually came up with this idea while practicing another song, which is a jazz song called Con Alma. And I kind of was just messing around with the chords and came up with sort of like an alternate version of the chords, I guess you could say. Um, just another way of playing the chords. So let me show you this real quick. So the song Con Alma. Oops. No, no. My microphone stand. Okay. So let me know if you guys can't hear this. So Con Alma kind of goes like this. So I was really inspired by this second part of that. So starting on this D flat. And I kind of went with that idea, but changed the bass note a little bit. So this was making use of inversions, changing the order of the notes in the chord around. So instead of having C on the bottom, I changed it to A. And that was kind of the basis of the idea. So for this one, for example, instead of having the drums first, I decided to go with this chord progression first and kind of use that as my inspiration for this little idea. So let me play this for you. Unfortunately, I didn't record MIDI to it, so I can't show you the MIDI notes, but I will play the chords after if you'd like. Yeah, so that was my little idea. For this one, I feel like the bass line actually kind of was the main part of the melody. So this one is a little bit more melodic than usual. So this one I was basically just arpeggiating the chords. Let me see. So it's like this D flat major 7 to this F over A. So kind of arpeggiating from the root to the 5th on this D flat chord. And then the 3rd on the bottom to the root and another 3rd. And then this B flat minor, so also doing root 5th root to like a C minor. So I kind of a more melodic bass line, but again, I kind of was inspired by another song to come up with this idea. I feel like that happens to me often. I'm working on something, kind of manipulating another song that I'm learning, and that kind of gives me inspiration to come up with a new song idea. So if you have any writer's block, I would definitely recommend either working on other songs, transcribing songs, learning the chord progressions to some of your favorite songs, trying to figure out why do you like the song, what makes the chord progression so great. That's a really good way to kind of get inspired for a new song. Another way to kind of get inspired is to set limitations on yourself. So for example, when I was in college, I was writing a album of music for a jazz piano trio album of mine, and for one of the songs I really wanted to do a song in 3/4 and have it be in A flat. So having those two kind of limitations on myself really helps me kind of focus and come up with a new idea that I might not have come up with otherwise. So again, setting limitations and learning chord progressions to other songs can definitely be an inspiring way to come up with your own chord progressions. So this is one little example. The drums, I think I just dragged in samples. It's pretty minimal. It's mostly keyboard heavy, so I have some Rhodes, synth bass, this little wobbly pad, which I think might have been my mini log. Pretty cool. And then this Mellotron sound. So overall, a pretty simple song. Not too much going on in the drums. Otherwise, I do have a couple of other examples. This one I posted on my Instagram a little while ago as like a little collaboration idea, and people seem to really love it. So I'll definitely share these with you. People seem to like the chords for this one, and this one I actually made with EXO by Excellent Audio. So let's see, I'll just open it up on another track, but I would definitely recommend checking this one out. It's a really cool plugin that kind of creates little drum grooves, and you can really customize what you're doing by changing samples, by changing rhythms. So again, EXO, Excellent Audio, another good plugin to check out. But I made the beat for this one with that, and I'll just play it for you quickly so you can hear it, and then I'll go over the chords. So as you can see, there's a lot going on in the drums here, multiple kicks. I replaced the snare from EXO with another sample from my friend Dotan. Shaker, bells, a lot more going on in the drums here. I added my own tambourine. So again, going from minimal kind of beat from the previous example to this one, which is a little bit more in depth. And the chords for this one are also a little bit more in depth. So I think I have the MIDI for this. But this one is actually starting on like our 4 chords. So in a lot of in a lot of musical styles, songs, usually the 1 chord is kind of like where we start, where we finish. But the 4 chord is also a really great place to start. Let me see if this is. So for this one, I started on C major 7 and kind of liked this B in the melody. So then I thought of what other chords could go with this B, and I decided to go with F7 sharp 11. So this is our F7 with this B in here as our sharp 11. And again, I keep that B in here. So E minor to kind of like this E flat 7 to a D sus. Again, our 7 sus chord, our D7 sus chord. Finally, back to our 1 chord, our G major. And kind of as a passing chord back to our C major, I added another another dominant sharp 11 chord. So this D7 sharp 11. Just kind of as a little chord to go back to our C major. So instead of just going from G to C, just give it a nice little flavor. And yeah, so this one was really fun to do. This one, the bass line was a little bit more rhythmic than melodic, so just kind of playing the root note and kind of syncing up with the kick drum. So a lot of different options for bass lines, chords, melodies. But I think that's about all we have time for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please, if you have any other questions, leave them in the chat. If you uh, want me to answer them in the remaining time that we have. But I hope this was helpful in kind of getting more ideas for chords to add to your productions in Ableton Live or whatever DAW you might be using. Again, I do teach at the Electronic Music Collective, so if you'd like to work with me some more, I do teach private lessons and Ableton class, so definitely feel free to reach out and check out the Electronic Music Collective website to check out all the courses that we offer, both online and on our Manhattan campus. I know COVID is still kind of messing with everything, so most stuff is online right now, but definitely check out the website, electronicmusiccollective.com, and stay tuned. Richie Beretta is doing another workshop soon. I think there's a flyer for that somewhere out there. So thank you guys again for being a part of this workshop, for listening to me rant for an hour about chords and Ableton, and I hope you enjoyed. Thanks so much.